Imagine for a moment that you had nothing left to lose in this life. Everything that used to weigh you down, hold you back, and keep you stuck has fallen away. You're left standing with only your raw, authentic self. How would you show up differently? What would you say and do if the fear of loss and failure no longer had a grip on you? This is the power of being silent and acting as if you have nothing to lose. And today I want to take you on a journey to access this profound state of liberated action. We spend so much of our lives desperately grasping, clinging to things we're terrified to lose: relationships, jobs, status, money, the illusion of security. We live in fear that one wrong move, one mistake, and it could all come crashing down. So we stay silent, we play it safe, we don't take risks, we water ourselves down and contort ourselves to fit in, all in an attempt to protect what we have, to avoid the pain of loss. But here's the truth: everything in this temporary world is already in the process of being lost. That's the nature of the human experience of life itself. Relationships end, jobs come and go, loved ones pass on, the body ages and declines. There are no exceptions. Sooner or later, in one way or another, every worldly thing gets taken away. So the question becomes, how do you want to live in the meantime? Shackled by the fear of loss or liberated by the acceptance of it? When you make peace with the inevitable, ephemeral nature of life, a deep freedom takes root in your soul. A profound sense of fearlessness emerges. You start showing up in an entirely new way. You speak your truth boldly, even if your voice shakes, because you know that self-betrayal is the only real loss. You pursue your deepest passions, even if the path is uncertain, because you know that not even trying is the only true failure. You love with your whole heart, even if there's no guarantee, because you know that withheld love is the only real heartbreak. You start dancing like no one's watching, singing like no one's listening, living like heaven is on earth. The more you make peace with death, the more you come alive. The more you're willing to lose, the more you open yourself up to gain. Things that used to paralyze you with fear, rejection, humiliation, failure become opportunities for growth, for revealing your unshakable inner strength. I'm not saying any of this is easy. The ego, the false self, will kick and scream every step of the way. It survives on fear, on clinging to the illusion of control. To act as if you have nothing to lose is a direct threat to its very existence. But you are so much more than your ego, so much more than your fears and limiting beliefs. At your core, there is an indestructible, eternal essence, a field of pure consciousness and potentiality. When you learn to live from this place, to anchor yourself in the ground of your being, the forces of fear and loss lose their power over you. So how do you practically begin to embody this way of being? It starts with stillness, with silence, by routinely withdrawing from the noise of the world, the chatter of your mind, and reconnecting with the quiet, vast spaciousness that is your true nature. In that silence, you begin to gain distance from the false self, from the ego voice that narrates your life through the lens of fear and scarcity. You start to realize that you are the watcher of your thoughts, not the thoughts themselves. You are the wide open sky, not the passing clouds. From that expansive vantage point, you can see the truth that so much of what you thought you needed to grasp, what you thought you couldn't live without, is not the source of your deepest fulfillment. Who you are, the love that you are, the awareness that you are, that is what's essential and infinite. Everything else is icing on the cake. And paradoxically, the more you ground yourself in that unshakable essence, the more fully you can show up for the temporary dressing of this world. You can engage without attachment, give without expectation, love without fear. You can enjoy the sweetness of this fleeting dance all the more, knowing that nothing real can ever be lost. Does this mean you become passive, that you give up on creating and achieving? Quite the opposite. When you act as if you have nothing to lose, you take more risks, not less. You become more bold, more daring in the service of your deepest values. Think of the heroes throughout history who changed the world, who left an indelible mark: Martin Luther King, Jr., Mahatma Gandhi, Rosa Parks, Nelson Mandela. They all reached a point where they were willing to lose everything in the pursuit of truth, of justice. where they valued adherence to their deepest conscience more than their own comfort, their own lives even. And through that total surrender, that willingness to lose it all, they gained everything. They tapped into a power beyond their little self, a power that made them resilient, unbreakable, unstoppable. A power that enabled them to endure unthinkable hardships while maintaining an inexplicable inner peace. That power is in you too. The same boundless spirit that animated the greatest movers and shakers resides in your own heart. Their secret was simply this: they got silent enough to hear it and fearless enough to follow it. So let's talk about some of the practical ways you can start to cultivate this way of being. It all comes down to practice, to reprogramming your default response to challenges and discomfort. The first key is developing a consistent practice of stillness, whether it's through meditation, solo walks in nature, moments of pause throughout the day. Find a way to routinely step back from the noise and activity and just be. In that space between thoughts, that gap between the constant doing, you'll start to taste the silent, eternal dimension of yourself. You'll begin to realize that there is a part of you that is always at peace, always free. No circumstance, no person, no worldly loss can touch it. From that place of centered alignment, you can start to take contrary action. Meaning when your ego is telling you to avoid something, to run from discomfort, you consciously choose to lean in. You start small with low-stakes challenges and work your way up. So let's say you're terrified of public speaking, of being seen and judged. You start by expressing one authentic opinion a day in a group setting. Then you work your way up to asking a question in a meeting. Then you volunteer to give a short presentation. Then you sign up for Toastmasters. Gradually, you retrain your brain to associate those experiences with growth and expansion rather than threat and contraction. Or let's say you're scared to end a relationship that you know isn't right for you. You start by having one honest, vulnerable conversation with that person about how you're feeling. You sit with the discomfort, breathe through it, knowing that you can handle whatever emotions arise. Then, if needed, you build up to following through with the breakup, anchoring yourself in your deepest truth. The more you flex this muscle of consciously moving towards what scares you, the more fearless you become. The more unshakable you feel in the face of uncertainty and loss. It's like building a spiritual immune system. Bit by bit, you transmute your reactivity into responsiveness, your contraction into expansion. Another key is practicing non-attachment, which is not indifference or avoidance. It's the art of fully engaging without clinging, without needing a particular outcome in order to feel okay. It's bringing your whole heart to something while simultaneously being willing to let it go. You can practice this with small things like savoring a meal without needing it to last forever, or giving a gift without expecting anything in return, or pouring your heart into a creative project and then releasing it to the world without being attached to how it's received. As you start to live this way more and more, you discover a profound paradox. The more you let go, the more fully you can show up. The more willing you are to lose, the more deeply you can love. You stop wasting your precious energy clinging to temporary forms and instead start flowing with the underlying essence of life. You start dancing with the great unfolding rather than resisting it. And in that surrender, in that willingness to risk it all, you gain access to a joy beyond reason, a peace that surpasses understanding. Now, I want to be clear, acting as if you have nothing to lose doesn't mean recklessly putting yourself in harm's way. It doesn't mean neglecting your basic responsibilities or disregarding your well-being. This fearlessness must be balanced with wisdom, with discernment. There is a difference between the ego's reckless thrill-seeking and the soul's brave, purposeful leaps. One comes from a place of escapism and desperation, the other from a place of centered, grounded faith. As you practice stillness and attunement, you'll start to gain clarity on that distinction. You'll develop a felt sense of when life is calling you to leap and when it's asking you to be patient, when fear is distorting your perception, and when your inner knowing is sounding the alarm. It's also important to remember that fearlessness is not a static state that you achieve once and for all. It's a moment-to-moment choice, a perpetual practice. There will still be times when you get knocked off center, when old fears and patterns grip you. The key is to have compassion with yourself in those moments, to forgive your humanness while recommitting to your highest truth. The more you return to your core, to the silence and stillness within, the more easily you can discern the voice of fear from the voice of wisdom. And the more readily you can course correct when needed, realigning with your deepest intentions. Living this way takes tremendous courage and faith. It requires a radical shift in perspective, a complete reorientation of your being. But as you start to taste the freedom on the other side of fear, as you start to experience the joy and aliveness of an undefended heart, there is no going back. Every single one of us has this capacity for awakened action, for embodied fearlessness. It doesn't matter what your past looks like, how many times you've stumbled and fallen, how much you feel like you've lost. In any moment, you can remember the truth of who you are. You can get still and reconnect with your essential wholeness. You can take one small, brave step in the direction of your deepest knowing. As you do this again and again, as you make this your living practice, your whole world will start to transform. Limitations that once seemed insurmountable will begin to dissolve. Stuck places that felt permanent will give way to newfound freedom and flow. Relationships that were fraught with fear and guardedness will blossom into deeper intimacy and trust. You will stop waiting for some future moment of arrival and instead start savoring the sacred perfection of what is. You will stop holding your breath in anticipation of the other shoe dropping and instead exhale into the ever-present wholeness that you are. From this unshakable ground, you will meet the great challenges of our day with a strength and clarity that can move mountains. You will become a force of nature, one that no loss, no failure, no worldly circumstance can fundamentally disturb. And though there may be times when acting as if you have nothing to lose feels impossibly hard, in your heart of hearts you will know the truth. That even if you lost it all, every last bit of the temporary dressing of this world, you would remain. The vast awareness that is your true nature would remain. The love that you are would remain. And in that knowing, you are forever free. Free to show up fully, to love boldly, to risk greatly in the short, sweet dance of this life. Free to be silent in the midst of the noise, to act true in the face of the false, to walk through this world with an open and courageous heart. That is the invitation before you. That is the potential. That is your birthright. No matter where you find yourself in this moment, that unshakable freedom is just one choice away. So now for a final contemplation, I invite you to close your eyes. Take a few slow, deep breaths, allowing your body to settle. Feel your feet on the ground, your seat in the chair. Notice any sensations, any feelings present in the body. Now silently ask yourself, if I was acting as if I had nothing to lose, what would I do differently today? What conversation would I have? What risk would I take? What truth would I speak? Don't censor your responses. Allow them to arise freely without judgment. Trust whatever your deepest wisdom is revealing to you. Now ask yourself, what is one small step I can take in that direction? One concrete action that would feel like a stretch but is still within my reach. Again, trust whatever comes. And commit to following through, to taking that brave step in the direction of your deepest knowing. As you step into this practice, remember that you are never alone. That every single person who has ever changed the world started exactly where you are, by getting still, by catching the quiet whisper of truth amidst the noise, and by taking one small, courageous action at a time. As you learn to act as if you have nothing to lose, you will discover a freedom beyond your wildest imagination. You will become a force of nature, an unstoppable agent of change and healing in this world. And you will know beyond a shadow of a doubt that no loss, no worldly defeat, no apparent failure can shake the eternal truth of who you are. That radical freedom is available to you in this breath. In this moment, it's time to get still, to listen deeply, and to leap boldly in the direction of your highest calling. The world is waiting for the fullness of your gift. Step into the fire of transformation. Let it burn away everything that is false and emerge as the fearless, radiant vessel you were born to be. It's time to be silent. and act as if you have nothing to lose. Your greatest life is calling.